Okay, welcome to an early edition of the Grassy Knoll. I know it's February 2nd, 2007. I know Phil saw his shadow. I don't know what General Lee did. We don't care about what Puxatony saw up there. We care about what General Lee saw down here, like we ever have a winner, right? With us today for this early edition of the Grassy Knoll is Andy Sr. from the 9/11, Utkins for 9/11 Truth movement up there. The website is Utkins for 9/11truth.blogspot.com. And coming to us from Colorado is Bill Zabel, writing the book Phantoms of Columbine, and that website is phantomchasers.net. I got that right, didn't I, Bill?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, 1 out of 1 ain't bad, huh? Yeah, all right, Bill. And
the other one's fine, too.
Yeah, well, I had to try a second time there. For those of you who are wondering whether or not, and this will be good news for some and bad news for others, whether or not we got hit with any of the tornadoes coming through with the squall line from last night into this morning. They hit above us and they hit below us. We've ducked another bullet. We live another day. But they've accumulated a body count and plenty of damage. So some other people in the world are hurt today in Central Florida. Harry was going to join us, and we started doing a taping of his dealings with radio. And then he, for some reason, stopped and claimed the 21st Amendment and hung up. So
the 21st?
Yeah, repealing prohibition.
I tried. I did that the other night.
So
right.
The thing about what we're going to do today is a lot of people wanted me to address. Whatever a lot of people is the RBN thing. But I come here not to bury RBN. I think, folks, you have to now stand back. Something obviously has grabbed your attention, and I think you have to learn that there's a reality in this whole Paytridiot 9/11 movement and in the networks that you ought to be somewhat aware of. And, if you don't like it, what I got to say, that's fine. I don't want to damage anybody. I'll tell you my dealings with what's happened and the reality of the way things are on this side of the curtain. And I just want to set something up. The late Hunter S. Thompson had a great quote that really did pertain to the record business. But unfortunately, it can be applied to a number of other endeavors in this country, and radio is no different. And it states, and I'll just say, radio is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's a negative side also. Radio, as Harry would have told you, and we've talked a lot about this, it's a rotten business. It's the worst of the three, to include print and television. And it is famous for just unseemly things going on. I guess one of the reasons is, I would think, is because people who would not have money to get involved in television and print do have the money to get into radio. That still could happen. And you take what you get in that situation. But before we go any further, I want to level with everybody. And you're not gonna like it probably, but this is the way it is. And it's been on my heart for a long time. First of all, I don't know that Andy or Bill agree with this, and they certainly can speak to it. And go ahead. It's whatever you guys feel. But I'll table this firstly, and that is the whole Patriot thing's a scam. It's a scam. And the reason I say that is because we are badly deluded about what this country was founded on. And I know, you think you got the real deal, and Washington was great, and our founding fathers were out of sight. Says who? Even in the Patriot community, where you get supposedly the real deal, not necessarily. And I'm not saying necessarily that these people know it's a scam or a lie, but I'm not so sure that if they did, that they wouldn't go ahead and perpetuate the lie continually. And I'm saying this, and on February 6th and 8th, I'm going to have on the Informer. I call him the I-Man. He's been on the show before, and I think I'm going to resurrect those old shows and put him up so that when he comes on the 6th and the 8th with 2 45-minute segments, you can listen to what he says about the way things really are. He's had his battles with the government. He's been bloodied pretty well. He has beat the IRS. He has beaten the IRS, but he's had enough of it, so I'm not going to worry about his identity. I can find him if I want to, so as anybody else can. So anyway, I call him the I-Man, but he has spent decades doing all the unsexy research that needs to be done to get down and scrape away all the legalese and obfuscation to find out what really is going on in this country. And the point is, it's always, the joke has been on us. These founding fathers and the framers and all this crap, Yeah, they may have been Christians, maybe, and they might have been more Masons than Christians, but above all, a lot of these guys were lawyers, and that's where it starts. You will find out, and you listen to him, and I'm going to let him carry the ball on this. You'll find out that the Constitution, there's nothing. It's nothing. It sounds good. It's almost like what it says in Scripture that William Faulkner ripped off and saying, it's full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So you let him explain to you, and you realize what you guys think you lost, we never had to begin with. I'll just give you one example. Habeas corpus. It's not a right. It's a privilege. And he'll explain it to you. He'll give you case law. Bring your pads and pencils. And you're going to find out that they can do anything they want to us. They can extend it to us, and they can pull it back. So with the whole Padilla case, no problem. They're perfectly under their purview. So check in with that, and then turn around and take a look at what's going on. As he said, and he has no umbrage with the Patriot networks. He didn't know I was doing the show today, but he just looked at me and goes, the Patriots are barking up the wrong tree. You never had it. So how in the world are you going to take it back? And that's what I'm saying. You're being told on these stations that the NWO is on the run, that we can stop it, that we're going to take our country back. For you Christians who understand what's going on, you understand that the NWO, which is referred to in a secular sense, is nothing less than the satanic takeover prophesied in Scripture. You can't beat it, folks. You can't wrestle with flesh and blood and come on top. You got to do it through spiritual matters. This isn't the end of the road for us. Now, does that mean we all belly up? No. Why am I doing this if I know that? If I really believe that this isn't beatable, why am I doing it? Mainly because I thought, when I started the show 5 years ago, that there was, to me, I had to do something I thought was in a civic sense, to let people know, who don't know, what's going on. And I didn't know I'd be here 5 years from now, and I know I'm not going to be here in another 5 years, let alone 5 months. Because there comes a time when you've said it all, and it's like, well, folks, go out there and do something. And this is the problem. A lot of you folks have been hypnotized, paralyzed, neutralized by listening. Just listening. It doesn't get anything done. We're all in the choir. And that's a conviction that's been on my heart, and I'm wondering, is what I'm doing making any sense anymore? I oftentimes think no. This has become entertainment for a lot of you. It's become company for lonely people, which I'm not making fun of. I understand. They're my family. Okay. And there is some information, too. The health shows are good, going back in history, and that's what I love to do. Because in history, you can point to the future by what happened back there. When they say they're going to do it in 1908 or 1858, and they do it, chances are there is a big plan afoot here, and it's hard for people to argue that there isn't a conspiracy. Now, this recent catfight between Statmiller and Jones and whoever Wes Perkins is, it's like Donald and Rosie. Now everybody's, they want to get in there and they want to watch the car wreck. Who cares? Who really cares? I mean, this show ought to tell you about what's going on. Now, if you want to talk about personalities now and what the real deal might be, okay. Now, I had my little diatribe, and so, first, Bill, you can resonate on that, you can, whatever you want, but speak your heart.
Well, I would have to say this is shocking. I thought just buying a few videos would solve the New World Order problem. And my $29.99 doesn't do it. Well, I'm shocked. Actually, this has been this way since the early 90s when I got into the Patriot movement. I was concerned about a lot of the things that I had seen around this country and in South America, and I thought, well, I want to hear what these guys have to say, Maybe they're like mainstream researchers. It took me about 5 years to figure out that I was at a carnival, basically. And I went from one Patriot radio station to another, one Patriot convention to another, and I thought, okay, everyone's fallible, everyone makes their mistakes, that's fine. Some of these people were definitely legitimate and honest. I mean, they didn't care about money. They said, listen, here's what we found. This is what the government's trying to do. Thanks for looking at my information. Then you have the car salesman. And I hate to say it, for the most part, this whole Patriot Talk Radio community is a used car lot. And the used car is, here's my version of events, buy it because it's better than the guys down the road. And I just hear, probably starting about 3 years ago, I just got physically sick with most of talk radio. It was actually making me physically sick. I thought, I'm going to go turn on mainstream TV. I'm going to go be brainwashed again by the real brainwashers.
The professionals.
Yeah, the professionals, not these losers that couldn't cut it in Hollywood. And that's really what you're dealing with. I found out that many of these so-called Paytridiot types, most of them had tried to cut it in Hollywood and couldn't do it. Which, I mean, I feel sorry when a guy can't do a job, you know. But the fact is, these guys are ripping everyone off. You know, oh, buy my herbal cure, you'll be cured of cancer tomorrow. Oh, buy my book, I tell you how to get out of paying taxes. And I've always warned people about that, because I've had friends that have gone to jail using some of this Paytridiot stuff. And I said, hey, these guys are getting people thrown in jail. They're getting them set up. Some people are getting killed. We better take a step back and look at this quote, Paytridiot Talk Radio. And one of my biggest gripes, it has become my mission number one in this life, besides telling people about God, is to look at these big talk shows that still exist. We all know who they are. And let people examine them on a real front instead of just listening to, hey, how do I stop New World Order? Buy my videos. What do I do about taxes? Buy my videos. The statement I just made is something that I heard for 10 minutes straight between a caller and Alex Jones of Infowars.com. The guy was trying to ask legitimate questions. You know, where do I turn? A website, a legal expert. And he got the same thing time and time again. Now, in all fairness, Alex Jones is not the only one doing this, nor is he the greatest one that's ever done this kind of talk where, you know, buy this, buy that. But I have seen some disturbing trends between him, GCN, and RBN that are absolutely flabbergasting. You can't believe the condensation between these guys, where they're condescending, they're backbiting, and they're doing it publicly. People, none of this is like a schoolyard rumor. They get on the internet and they write web pages to each other and call each other names and say, well, you know, I know your kids, they do drugs, and no, you do. And they just throw the accusations out like two 13-year-old girls who just stole each other's boyfriends.
Watch it.
And it's a waste of time and money for people to continue to put up with this stuff. If we're no better than mainstream media, then we just need to go sell used cars, because that's what we're doing on talk radio the majority of the time. That's all I've seen.
All right.
Amen.
Andy?
Yes, I concur. Basically, listening, I didn't mean to. I felt when you were pausing, it was time for me to barge in a couple of times. That's, you know, I can't stand a breath. I have to come in on it.
Well, if you feel better, I'll talk over both of you.
Okay, you can do that.
Okay.
We can play Fetzer and Jones. We'll do that later.
Yes, we will.
In fact, but listening to what you're saying, I feel that the world has always been a game of keep away. It's always been keeping power out of the hands of most of us. And whoever is in power, whether they are supposedly one side or the other, that old Hegelian magic that we know so well, it's always been one or the other. It's never been the power in the hands of the actual people. It's never been on a grassroots level. It's never been local, except maybe for the first, when the country was getting started, when people were living way out in the wilderness and there was no surveillance. And as cities got bigger, you began to get more surveillance, more rules, laws, regulations. But there was a time in this country when people were living way out in the wild, and it was, I guess you could call it anarchy, but in a sense it was more benign than that. The people were basically able to mind their own business, and that's basically what I've always felt this country was founded on. Except now I realize that it was it's sort of a scam, as you say. What was set up was the illusion of freedom.
Right.
And that's now it's all coming to roost, and it's it's not very pleasant. And I agree that the Patriot stuff is it's listening to these guys hack at each other. It's like professional wrestling. It's like regular politics. It's like anything else that you hear. It is certainly not. If these guys were really concerned, they wouldn't be going off on this Jesse the Body Ventura type stuff. It would be absolutely, to me, it's absolutely disgusting. And I agree. Like Bill, I can't listen to this stuff. It gives me a splitting headache. It makes me. I listen to music instead. I love music. I can't bear to listen to these guys whack at each other. Maybe for a few minutes it's sort of amusing, but God, it's just so it goes on, and it doesn't solve anything.
Well, we started this when it became clear to those of us who were in contact that it looked pretty much like we started with the 9/11 movements, that they were begun purposely to also slide through another agenda, a clandestine one. And if that weren't the case, then what often happens is once they're started, they do get corrupted, either because it just comes with the flesh, and people will argue, or because it was meant to do that, to derail it. But now you take a look also at the networks and some of the stuff that's going on, and it's about making money. It's about making money. If they don't make money, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I'm not holding myself up above anyone else, but the thing is, and I'll say this about the Wing Duo also, they worked, they supported themselves, and they did the show. And it can get really, really hectic, and it can get really, really old. But the one thing you do know, for the most part, is that nobody's censoring you, no advertisers telling you chill. You're not out there having to sell crap you don't believe in. Like I said, in January, it's you want prepaid legal services. Then in February, we don't care about that anymore because they didn't renew. Now we're into oxygen therapy. They didn't renew, so I'm not doing that anymore. I mean, come on, you're saying stuff and you're lying. And that's what advertising is for the most part. I mean, when I went out and got advertisers when we were on the AM stations, and it cost money, I went to the people that I patronized, because I went to produce places and organic places, health places. Even when I used when I had Calvin soap out from Oakland on, I used the product. It was non-detergent. They were healthy things. I had no problem with that. Never once did I have to compromise myself. Could have made a whole lot of money if I did, more money if I did. Because I don't know, folks, if you realize it or not, but when you sell advertising and you can cover your costs for broadcast, right, everything's taken care of, phone, whatever it is, you can put that money in your pocket. And that's procedure. That's okay. But just understand that's what happens. When I see some people throwing around figures like $7,000 a month, or I got to leave the internet or the networks, give me a break. Give me a freaking break, okay? I mean, how much is too much? I don't know, but it's about money. And if the money's not being made, they wouldn't be there. Now, if we're going to roll down to personalities, I suppose, and I guess some people were wondering about Statmiller. I never met him, never talked to him. Called into a show once about 5-6 years ago. But from the people that I dealt with at GCN, that behavior that was just exhibited is not untoward for him. Okay? He is volatile. We're going to have a guy on in the second hour who fired him from GCN. He probably won't speak to it. He's extricated himself from there, and he's happy to be gone. But he fired him because of volatile behavior. So if you're shocked by John Statmiller's conduct, that's what happens on the other side of the curtain. As far as the other characters in RBN, I mean, I don't know what happened, and I'm not grinding an X, but Frank Whalen will not respond to me any longer. It's not that I knock on his door all the time, but I mean, one time, we were okay, and then the next time, we're not, and I never hear from him again. And I'm like, gee, are we a community or not? I'm not asking anything I wouldn't give value for. Same thing with Zemansky. Had me on the show, seemed a little bit surprised by the response he got. We said we were going to exchange guests. He did it once for me, and he never sent anything my way, and now he doesn't return the emails. That's all I'm going to say. He doesn't have to. He's not compelled to. But there's no cooperation here. Do I have to be on the networks to do such, or is everybody protecting their little bailiwick? You guys go figure it out. Now, another thing I want you to do, too, folks, and that is, like, if I'm talking about Wing TV, it's like, well, you supposedly broke with them. And I did, over an issue that I could not brook. And I told them all that. Now, they're big boys and girls, and they don't have to they don't have to bow down to what I want, and they certainly didn't, and that's fine. But they did good work other than this, and some people consider the work that I don't like very good. But I had a line in the sand where I drew, and that's the way it was. Now, I've been in contact with them, and I have to tell you that, there's a lot of good stuff they did, and a lot of stuff they did was prophetic to a certain extent.
Yes, I agree with you.
Now, what I'm going to tell you is, folks, if you want to, they've opened up, a section on their server has always been dedicated to the Hall of Shame. And that URL, you'll not hit it on their website. There won't be any link on the website, but if you use this link, you will get to it, and that is wingtv.net/audio. I'm sorry, is that right? Do I have that right? Oh, you're going to kill me. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, /shame.html. wingtv.net/shame.html. Look at some of the questionable things that some of these characters have been involved with. They've done the research. Nobody sued them, and nobody really argued with them as far as who were involved as far as victims go, and also those who felt besmirched by the conduct of some of these folks out there. So I'll let it go at that. You want to go take a look there? I don't think that you would be wasting your time.
I looked at their information, and I thought it was a lot of the stuff was was right on the money, and it's always been. I think they've always been good at ferreting out the phonies.
Yep. All right. I'm going to play. I got 4 clips to play. Dwight the Bright sent me a long one that I didn't use. I didn't break it down. We might have a redundancy there. I don't know. But Andy, we've got 2 that are coming. They are under the heading, I believe, of was it Jones and
Jones talks about Stat Miller. I think this is from January 11th on the Jack Blood program. So a lot of love there.
All right, you actually have 2 of them, right? Back to back that you ripped.
Yep.
All right, we're going to play those 2 in a row, and then we'll rejoin the discussion. You're listening to Grassy Knoll, 25 minutes after the hour in this early hour edition.
I had something happen to me that it's so outlandish that I'm not going to talk about it because people wouldn't believe it until I'm sitting there at a Denny's one night with a group of like 10 people, and I go, yeah, one time he did this to me, and they go, oh, that happened to me. That happened to me. I heard this happen to such and such. I didn't know it was like something they do. I was at this guy's house, and I'm sitting there doing a radio show with him. And all of a sudden, I look up and he's pointing a Walther PPK handgun at me, and I was kind of, when I'm not paying attention, I'm kind of stupid. I was, what's going on? I almost get hit in traffic all the time because I'm so unafraid. I'm kind of a dumb animal in a way. I'm like, what are you pointing at me for? And he had this maniacal look of like pleasure, like he's trying to extract horror. And I jumped up and I said, you better put that down, man. You got a problem. I'm not going to be around you anymore. And so I kind of just went away. Then he orchestrated this whole big thing. Oh, Genesis isn't going to exist anymore. Better come get behind me. Wasn't true. Everybody remember that? And he did all these things, and I ignored that and tried to be neutral. Well, it's okay. We need more voices. And all this stuff went on over the years, and all these things happened. And then I heard from so many people who had been over at his house and done things with him. And then, Jack, you moved down here from up in Rhode Island, and then you were over at his home, and on record, you told me that there was drug use going on, right, Jack?
Yeah, that's correct. But, here's the problem. I don't want to get into a he said, she said
the point is, this
thing.
son of a
yes,
bitch.
I witnessed.
Hold on. Son of a bitch.
No, hold on. No, you hold on, Alex, for 1 second. Because I want our listeners to understand that the people that are out pointing the finger and accusing us of all these things are actually guilty of the very things they accuse us of doing.
That's it. No, the point is, Jack, you've been around me when we're sitting there, drinking beer, and other people, because I don't care. Everybody does it in this town. People pull out a joint, outside at a restaurant and start smoking it. People walk down the street, but do I ever smoke it, Jack?
No, I've never seen you do it.
I don't like pot. I don't like drugs. I like caffeine and occasional Budweiser. The point is, this guy got up on the air and said that he hired a PI. That's made up, just like the 2020 thing. He just pulls the stuff out of his rear end. And you know what? I'm going to take him into court. I'm going to take his wife that owns it in there. She's going to get sued. Listen, I'm not playing. I'm going to sue you. And I'm going to take him in. I'm going to say, you said this. Now, here's all the people that knew you were talking about me, playing my music, saying the #1 talk show was, talking about me. You now are going to produce You're going to produce this, and you're going to produce all your evidence. And I know it's not true. Okay? And then, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring the people on air he's pointed guns at. I got one working in this office who's been there at the office when they're at the table, and he pulls a gun out at a board meeting to intimidate people up there. This guy should be run out of here. I am a pathetic worm that I didn't do this earlier. This is
Alex, I mean, we try to ignore all of this. We try to go on and do our work, and at some point, this has to come to a head so that healing can occur.
Well, by the way, that coward's voice was shaking yesterday when he was doing it, thinking he'd intimidate me, bluffing me. You hear me, boy? My voice didn't bluff it. You think I'm afraid of some pencil-neck white-beater? You think I'm afraid of you, who gets up on the air and calls Jack Blood's son a bastard? You bastard? Huh? You think I'm afraid of you? You're a punk. You're nothing. I have 100 times the listeners you do. You're getting out of my town, and you're not sucking off me anymore. When you blew the Michigan militia, they finally figured out who you were and ran you out. I should have listened to people a long time ago.
Well, I mean, here's the
shame. He declared war on me, and let me tell you, his little pimp. Let me tell you why I'm going public. The main reason was these local pimps, there's a couple of them, sitting there saying, I'm the bad guy. That's it. I'm going to have judgments. I'm going to have everything. I'm going to have it all. I'm going to have my name. Hey, listen. There are going to be a bunch of weak-minded people who go, well, is it true? When you just said you've been in events when he's doing the stuff he accuses me of, I am Mr. Straight-Laced, as everyone who knows me knows. It's a joke. He accuses me of this. I've got a PI, and I know who his drug dealer is, and but other people called and said he sounded like he said I was a drug dealer. Said it real slick, too. It's just sick wordsmithing stuff. And I'm going to say, hey, who is it? Hey, tell me. Come on. I want to hear it right now. You're not going to, and I'm going to sue you. I don't have nothing. Yeah, but your wife owns that network, and she's just as much as involved, and she's just as culpable. And I'll sue the employees up there, too. I'm not playing games. I want you to know that. I'm coming for you. You are going to, and you pull out the stuff we heard about in Michigan. Go ahead and. I mean, if you think the feds were going to go after me before, let's see them try now. There's a whole element of that too. And if the scum around, some of the scum can't recognize it, that's fine. Okay, that whole thing is a cancer. You've declared war on my name. You've lied about me, and it's over. It's over for you. All of it. We're going to have the people on air you pointed guns at. We're going to have the people on air you've used drugs with. My God, we're on an air with a talk show host right now that works at your network and saw you smoking con bud, boy. And we know there was a lot more getting delivered that night. So it's over for you, you son of a bitch. You little bully. I'm not some little woman you can jerk around. Man, I'm so pissed off. And the people took...
All right, we're going into that third clip, and we'll get back to that later. I got a couple of emails. One of them is from Matthew Tartaglia, who I first heard of, and I think everybody else did, on that show, on Alex's show. And, of course, you just heard the expletive tirade. And Matthew, and this is true, Matthew said, listening to Alex saying son of a bitch, and he gave me a hard time saying ass. So anyway, and here's another thing. I read the other day, there's a micro-broadcaster near where I am who was busted by the FCC in what looked like the invasion of Normandy. And he did it. I guess he did a year of house arrest, whatever it was. He's a real honest, straight-up guy. And he did a lot of GCN broadcasting, programming. And this is what he said. Harry sent him the RBN affidavit from Parker, or Perkins, rather. And I sent it to Harry. Harry sent it to this individual. And he writes back regarding the affidavit. It explains the sudden, strange programming on RBN. Very soon after the infamous Black Wednesday raids, my wife and I went to a preparedness expo where Stattmiller was present. While the raids themselves were already common knowledge, to my face, Stattmiller recited one significant detail concerning the Lutz raid that no one else knew except for the court and the FCC. That raid was on him. Ever since then, I've never fully trusted Stattmiller. Also, the way he so easily and thoroughly abandoned Mark, that would be Kornicki, at such a terrible time in Mark and Nancy's life, has always been of great concern to me. So there's another take on what's going on there on the outside. It's
amazing stuff. This is, Alex should have been a pro wrestler. I think, talking about Hollywood, he either should have been one of those tent evangelists, or he should have been Hulk Hogan, one or the other. And, looking at I've seen his MySpace page, and he's actually standing there in a pose with his muscles hanging out and everything.
People.
I think he really wants to emulate that. I really do.
I'm going to throw it to you in a second, William. But here's one thing too. Jones is the person who opened my eyes, and for that I'll always be grateful. But I also recognize when somebody's it pretty much is operating with no oversight, and I think out of control. Now, I've not listened to RBN or GCN for 3 years. I had enough. I just had enough, and that was the end of it. Here I am, clean and sober off both of them, and I'm doing okay. Now, I have no dealings with Alex. I tried to email him a couple of times to ask him, for instance, can I get the contact information on that guest? Would that be okay? Because I'm no competition to any of them. Never heard a thing. I never got an email from them until 2 weeks ago, when I get an email that they can't use my credit card to renew my PrisonPlanet.tv subscription. Now, I really didn't want to do it for 3 years. I didn't want to do it for the second year. But what happened was I didn't realize that they kept a credit card on file and didn't give me a heads up, do I want to renew? They go ahead and they renew it, and I don't think that's cool. So what happened was the credit card that was in their possession, that number, I changed it. I get this email for the first time. We can't use your credit card. Right, you're not using a credit card. But that's the kind of crap that I think is, to me, is below the table with regard to business dealings. Is that a small thing? It might be. I'm just saying it just kind of fits the whole scenario.
I think it's that small. When people are using your credit cards, you have to opt out of it, or you don't even know that they're doing it.
It's not business procedure to go ahead and just do it for somebody. You always you ask. Okay. Now the other thing about blood, Wing TV on the /shame.html has a story about what went on with him and WALE in Providence. I don't have any first-hand knowledge of that, but it's there for you to read. You make up your own mind. I will tell you this about blood, which I thought really was poor. Jack and I switched guests every so often. He used to do that all the time with GCN. It was a really nice deal there for a while. Jack got stiffed one day by a guest. He asked me if I'd come on and fill in. Okay, I don't mind being sloppy seconds. But I said to him, you tell you what, the Terry Schiavo situation has erupted again here in Florida, and I can get Pat Anderson, her lawyer, on. And we did it. It was a great thing. And I'm not saying Jack wasn't grateful. Jack was going to leave RBN because of Stat Miller's behavior, as he told me, and he wants to go to GCN, and he's thinking of moving up there. So a contact that I had was leaving GCN, not because he was happy, and he was in the administration, if you will, the vice president. And he told me his misgivings about staying, and that he was going to go and start his own business. See, people who want to leave and start their own thing aren't necessarily happy where they are. It's not like he jumped to another job. And I said, ooh, wow, okay, fine. Now, Jack is telling me he wants to go up and move and all this stuff, and I said, Jack, look, this is off the record. Now, I will tell you this, it got on the record, and Anderson and Trudeau will both admit that this did take place. I told Jack, off the record, don't name names, but go circumspectly with GCN in case something is afoot. All right? I said, just think of that before you go lock, stock, and barrel. And this is off the record. Jack calls up Ted. Hey, Ted, this said that Trudeau said, ba. Anderson contacts Trudeau. Trudeau contacts me. Now, to me, that's a buddy. You know what? All right? That is not cool. Shut your mouth. I gave it to you off the record. So then this blew up, and thank goodness Trudeau forgave me. Not that the information wasn't accurate. It was just that, he thought I was probably going to keep it to myself. And when I heard Jack saying that, I said, please don't, you might want to think. And so to me, not cool, and that's the end of that,
Well, obviously, when somebody tells you something in confidence, you keep in confidence.
Well, if it's his well-being, I'm only saying, Jack, you might not find a case, but just understand what you're getting into in case something is afoot. Now, everything's gone fine, all right? But still in all, it wasn't for any other reason, no umbrage against GCN or Anderson or anybody else. It was just somebody thinking of pulling up stakes in Texas and going up to Minneapolis. That was the first thing that was thought of. And obviously he's broadcasting from Austin. But that he did that to me. Forget about it, man. Bill, now, I don't have the clips of this. You didn't send that in particular, but I'm going to play two more clips. One is at the party. That's the second one that we'll hear of the two. But we might as well get into this because I'm afraid we're going to run out of time, and I think it does bear out being told. Because one of the things that's happening in the Patriot movement and in the 9/11 movement is that they're pushing a New Age agenda. It is very, very palpable when you deal with characters like Maria Heller and some of the others who think that if we all just go, it'll be all right. It's not going to be all right. Okay? However, there is something that Nico Hop dug up. And, you may not go for his no-plane, one-plane theory. That's fine, but he's been doing some good work besides that. Again, we can have a disagreement about something, but that doesn't mean everything that he's done gets vitiated. So he turns up this information about Jones and Scientology. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I just went ahead and kind of brushed it off. And then Bill Zabel says, I've been listening to him, and something is going on there. Now, do you want to pick it up there, Bill?
Yeah. The one thing that I found I used to be I wasn't really involved in Scientology. My ex-wife was. When I started listening to some of the rants and raves of Alex and of course, a guest that he's had on by the name of Dr. John Breeding, who's really closely associated with Scientology. He quotes from L. Ron Hubbard's work in his book and on his website. I kept asking the question, why is Alex using these words that are Scientology words? Most of them are words that are used internally in the organization, and the general guy on the street would even have a hard time finding this stuff on the web, let alone, just making it up. I got real concerned because when I saw Jones's action out in public, when I saw his hard sell for videos, I'm like, oh my God, that's what Scientology does. Everything he's doing is what they're doing.
Well, what do you mean by everything? I mean, that's kind of broad, and you'll get taken to task on that.
I'll make it very, very simple. With Scientology, when you go to them and say, I want to be a member, they just don't say, hey, that's great. No, they love bomb you. They say, oh, you're the greatest. We can't do without you. Who says that, by the way? And then they say, you've got to buy this book. And you'll say, well, yeah, but can I look around? No, you've got to buy this book. They have an introductory book that they have for new Scientologists. They will not leave you alone till you buy it, and they constantly repeat the same things over and over again, which is what Alex Jones does. It's not a, hey, buy this and see what it's like. It's a hard sell. Jones does it constantly. It's push, it's push, it's push. Talk to anybody that's ever been a Scientologist, they've gone through the same thing. It's a push, just shoving it into your face as hard and fast as they can. And the other things that he does, by cutting guests off, people might think, well, that's just, or even cutting listeners off that call in. People might think, well, that's just rude and it doesn't mean anything. But the fact is if you listen to when he's cutting people off, it's not because he's out of time. It's because they're starting to get into areas that he don't believe in, that he doesn't want to have to answer that question or respond to that comment. He wants to move on. Well, I saw when my ex-wife was going through a lot of this stuff, she'd say, well, why do I have to spend money on this? Let me see about it. And she would ask them a comment about it. Immediately they would cut her off. Now, like I said, all these little events by themselves mean nothing. Take them all together, take the fact that he has an obvious connection to Scientology by promoting Dr. John Breeding, by having him as a guest, and you can't help but wonder, has he either unconsciously picked up what they're doing, or is he purposely doing what they do?
Well, you're saying that in his speech patterns as well, there are certain, idioms associated with Scientology that are starting to seep in.
Yes.
Now, there was something about using the term street team.
Yes. One of the things that he has done is he will tell you, go look at these supporter websites, which I thought was really strange because he usually doesn't like to really push, websites of other people. But he has done this with people he calls info warriors. That this is basically his followers that buy all his videos and supporting with their own websites. And he has used the term street teams several times in reference to those people with these websites. Well, when I go to these info warrior websites, they say that they're a street team. They say that their job is to go out there, they're all volunteers, and to push his work in public, put up posters on telephone poles, hand out DVDs. Well, I suggest anybody go to a Scientology website of any Scientologist, famous or not. They do exactly the same thing. Their web pages are even set up the same. They use the same titles. They use the same keywords. everything, and they will always say, quote, they're trying to bridge the gap between ignorance and enlightenment. That comes right out of L. Ron Hubbard's book, Dianetics.
Also, what's this use of dead agenting?
Yes, dead agenting is an internal term that when I heard Alex Jones use it on the radio, I wanted to run. I wanted to get out of this country because nobody uses that term external in Scientology, and I would be surprised if he didn't get a little email from some of his buddies telling him never to do it again. He said, and I'm quoting loosely, but I actually have the file that I downloaded from his archives. He was whining about the Paytridiot movement. He was whining about talk radio, and he goes, I'm coming to get all of you in the Paytridiot radio community. I'm going to get you all. And he had Jack on for briefly. And Jack said, well, yeah, but what about some of these other stations that have already, that have kind of cleaned up their act and, they're really doing good? And Alex goes, I don't care. He says, you remember that other guy I dead agented? And I'm like, dead agented? And that term, what that basically means, and it doesn't mean murder people. That term is not necessarily used to say that somebody in Scientology is going to murder. That is a political, internal term to mean that guy's our enemy, he's criticized us, discredit him, ruin his business, ruin his life. They ruined my ex-wife's life by dead agenting her.
We have somebody who I think wants to hear what those terms are, so I'm just going to repeat them. If that's what they were asking, it was a little vague in the IM. Street team is one term, dead agent team is one term, and bridge of enlightenment. And I think you had told me, William, that he had used it in saying that to bridge unknowledgeable people over to the other side.
Right, and he's used variations of it on his MySpace website too. So he changes it quite often, and I don't know if that's because he's been told to, or whether he's just doing a slick car sales routine where they'll say, 1 week, buy this because of this, and then the next week they have a new advertisement. He's definitely mixing their terms up. He's using them backwards. He's doing a lot of different things, but they all mean the same thing. The whole bridge to enlightenment thing is to bring people from, well, let's use a Christian term when we talk about from darkness to light.
Right.
The problem is anybody who has ever seen the light in Scientology doesn't see life much longer after that because it's called going clear. Now, he's never used the term clear before, but he's used other terms that I think he's suggesting that he's using the term clear.
All right, I'm going to play this fourth clip, okay? That's the one that you sent me. Okay, here we go.
The terrorist material did not fall on the footprint. It was blown away. And this of course, would be an indication.
Oh, wrong one.
Use of explosive.
Let me recue it. There we go. No, that wouldn't be right either. I'm having a real good day. This helps my credibility immensely. Here we go.
And the people took from what he said that I was a drug dealer and involved in all these drugs. When Jack, we've been at a few parties and people are smoking pot. Do I take the joint, Jack? No, I don't take the joint. I don't like marijuana, okay? And I don't like drugs other than, occasional alcohol. And so just this incredible lie on air. And then I thought a few of the locals.
All right. There you go. What did you take from that?
And that's the one that where he's at the party.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the fact that this guy claims to be a clean family man. He don't like drugs. Only occasionally, according to him, does he drink a beer. The fact is, he's admitting that him and Jack Blood have been at parties where there are drugs. That's not something that if you have a brain, you admit on an FCC-licensed radio station. Somebody did that up here in Denver who was at a rock and roll station, admitted that they were at parties where there were underage kids drinking and doing drugs. The very next week, that host of that rock and roll station went to the same kind of party, and there were undercover cops there. From a moral standpoint, him and Jack Blood almost seem to be laughing about it. Like hey, so there's a joint, Excuse me, aren't you trying to expose the government's corruption involved in drug renting? Aren't you supposed to be the guy that's working 24 hours a day and doesn't even have time to talk to his wife, but you and Jack Blood have got time to go to parties? I mean, he says you can't go anywhere in Austin without seeing drugs. Really? I got a cousin that lives in Austin. And when I go down there, I've been to plenty of places where there's no drugs allowed, and they serve alcohol. Where the hell's he hanging out? I don't like his... Huh?
He knows all the right places.
Yeah, I don't like his insinuations of what he's doing. It's almost like an acceptance. Well, you know, so the guy had a joint. I didn't take it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that he's starting to show the cracks in his armor. And it's not good because this is how John Stadmiller started out with his craziness. It started out this way, showing the little chinks in the armor, making comments. And then, of course, we all saw the horrible negative effect it had with RBN going straight off the air.
One of the things that I find interesting, and as far as talking about truth being a casualty when advertising is involved, Jones won't, and Monteith won't, and David and Joyce won't touch the Vatican. Now everybody will say, "Oh, you're going on the Vatican again." This is how important it is to me. Again, Phelps turned me 180 degrees, but I had to go beyond Phelps to find out whether or not this was really, in fact, true. And I found that it was. A cohort, David, out in California, when he first encountered, I don't know if it was Wilcox's book or Phelps, thought they were crazy, and I went, "Oh, slow down a little bit. Just check this out." And he went because he was interested. He was curious whether or not this were true, and he found out that it was. And the reason I say this, especially for Christians, is how were you told in Scripture, folks, that Satan would come unto you? How is the enemy going to compromise you, perhaps? Not by showing himself as an ogre and an obvious evil entity. The enemy is inside the gates. It was going to come dressed in some kind of spiritual manner. Now, I've got Jews mad at me because I'm not bashing every Muslim around. And, you know, I'm not saying the Muslims are mad at me for not bashing the Jews. I mean, others are upset with me for not bashing Jews. So you got Jews being bashed and Islam being bashed. And I ask these people, do you ever for once think that you've got somebody that's rubbing both these parties' butts with sandpaper and throwing them in a box for an eventual fight? Did you ever think that they've got you fully believing in this left-right, you know, good-bad, Islam-Jewish thing? No, they don't. You know, Michael Savage says it, so it's got to be true. And these are people who are not only Christians in many cases, but supposedly get it. And I mean, saying that, folks, I mean, I sit here some nights and go, we're screwed. We're screwed. And like I said, I'm telling people right now, you can idolize these show hosts. You can have hero worship. You can get real upset with what I'm saying and all the good they do, which is questionable in a lot of times, especially when it comes to David and Joyce. All right? But the thing is, they have to keep telling you that there's a hope, especially secularly. Otherwise, they can't keep going. Or you won't listen, and they can't sell stuff and make a living. That's where it's at. Am I sour grapes that I'm not there? No. Trudeau will tell you they wanted me to do a sports show in GCN. I was fine with that. That's the other half of my life. So, I mean, yeah, and Trudeau left and the deal went down. That's the way it goes. But I'm happy being here because, there is no censorship. I suffer for a lot of things, I guess, with exposure. That's fine. Like somebody said to me in Washington State, I picked you guys up 3,000 miles away doing a little garage show on pirate radio. He goes, and now, look how it's done. I mean, you got to me 3,000 miles away. I'm not worried about it. Just do the truth. Let everything else take care of itself. But I will tell you this, especially in Monteith's case, this brother David went ahead and took Monteith to task for not exposing the Vatican. Monteith twice in emails responded to David, and I have him if anybody wants to see him, where he says, maybe the Vatican was a little this and a little that, but the Catholics are real, if they believe in Christ. But he kept bringing it to the Catholic laity, and David told him, I'm not talking about the laity. I'm not talking about Catholic worshippers who probably have no idea what the Vatican is up to. And he went back again. He said, he threw it back into the Catholics. And again, David said, it's not about the Catholics. So Monteith will not touch the Vatican. And what I'm telling you folks is that's abridging the truth, especially for Christians who want to know where Satan's going to pop up or how he's going to do it. Well, it's in that little nation state in the Vatican. All right? Take it for what it's worth, but it does matter. The only ones it doesn't matter to are the ones who can't get you to believe that the Jews are the bane of the world. All right? And then when you prove to them that the Vatican's been at this for 2 millennia, then it's like, well, it doesn't matter who sits on top of the hill. Yeah, okay, fine. So anyway, I made my point. But you're not going to hear from Jones, who's got Catholic underpinnings. You're not going to hear from from Monteith, and you're not going to hear from Dave and Joyce. And I will tell you that Dave and Joyce are very different off the air than they are on the air. And one producer who worked up there and has now left GCN, I looked at him once, I'm going, what is the deal with them? And he's a very erudite, reasonable person of character, and the best he was going to lay on me was, they're different. And we left it go at that. Dave was supposed to be on my show once. I was on his show once. I'm calling him. It's 1 minute before we're going on air. He's not answering. Then finally walks in the door, picks up the phone. He goes, oh, yeah, okay. And he's going to stiff me. He didn't care. And then when he had me on his show, all he wanted me to tell him was that we were going to get back to GCN broadcasting, or more specifically, he wanted to get the Power Hour back on 1350 and 1400. And I'm like, you don't get it, Dave. The guy hates you. The millionaire who owns this place hates GCN. He threw him out, and they're not coming back, man. You know, so, I mean, it's like I said, it's all about the money. Apparently they got a 7-figure business going there, and they throw a couple of bottles of neutralizer gel out. They're terrific, you know. Also, Eleanor White was a guest with them, dealing with electronic harassment. This is a tough one to prove, and a lot of people stay away from it because it seems like they're all loonies. They are not. And they had Eleanor for quite some time. She was very much beholden to them, and then one day they dumped her and never had her back on again. Do not contact her. And Eleanor sends this around in an email, and she speaks glowingly of how nice it was. I'm going, don't you understand, Eleanor? You got dumped. They sold you out. You know, when did your message suddenly become not true? So, I mean, that's the way they do business, okay? And that's what it's about. It's about the money, folks. So you can sit there, be entertained. You can sit there and treat it like, you know, your audio soap operas. But the point of the matter is, you're not getting out and doing anything. And even if we can't turn it around, the thing is, just like the White Rose students in Germany, a handful of students, 2 professors, they knew they weren't going to stop Hitler, but they went ahead and did all that they could. And even to the point of being martyred. That's what courage is. This other stuff is just making noises and making money. If we can, I'd like to go to that clip, also going into the 9/11 movement, if we could. With Fetzer and with Fetzer and Jones. And here, Fetzer's using the old Jones talk over the guest here. Here we go. If I get this right.
Most, of the tower's material did not fall on the footprint. It was blown away. And this of course, would be an indication of use of explosives and, of course, gravitational potential energy. Now, to say that material was destroyed, however, that's another statement which does not fit into the explananda. In other words, there's no substantiation for that material being destroyed. It's just blown out.
To the exclusion of others. I mean, some massive source of energy, but it doesn't have to be. Explosives tends to carry the connotation of something more conventional like RDX and so forth.
No, super thermite is an explosive. It's used routinely now.
Yeah, the point is it can be another source of energy, Steve, that brought this destruction about. It doesn't have to be a conventional one. And it seems to me that you really have not been looking at the unconventional sources, and that's a weakness in your research.
Why do you say
want
I haven't looked at it? Of course I've looked at it.
Adequate alternative explanation, you have to consider the other alternatives and show it's more adequate.
Look, Jim, let me answer. I did look at it. You can't tell me I didn't, because, by George, I did. Now, that's just rude of you to say a statement that is unfounded and not true.
Well,
I looked at it. I told you earlier
that you hadn't looked at the plasma technology, for example, or directed energy weapons, Steve. I'm taking you at your word.
The Gurley paper treats it in some detail. It's in the Journal of 911 Studies. And if you read that, and I'm inviting Judy and Morgan to respond to that. It's a good paper. They can respond to a letter. It doesn't have to be peer-reviewed. They can just publish their response to Gurley's paper.
So you're maintaining that you have, in fact, in the course of your research, not only excluded mini nukes, but directed energy, HARP, solar energy, plasma weapons, and all that?
No, I didn't say that. I have excluded mini nukes, and I've published a paper on that. Okay. James Gurley has excluded the other. I'm still looking at it. But I'll tell you what, if it can't explain the sulfidation, which is published, and the coarseness, the super coarse nature of this dust, and the flowing orange glowing metal that comes out of the South Tower, 80th floor right up there, see? And the wispy white ash that drifts away.
Well, it's an incomplete hypothesis. Right? It's not enough. That film footage, which I find very puzzling, is authentic. I mean, let's assume that.
Let's talk about one other point, and that is the fact that the towers, as you look at it, this has to be in the explananda, do not collapse from the tippy top down. No. They start near where the planes went in. So that means that this beam, wherever it came from, has to skip the tippy top. Now, that means that, to me, it means it can't come from space. Please answer that.
He talks about that 34 is turning over and then turning to powder, and he's astounded by it. How does he explain it?
Look, Jim, I've told you, first of all, the data show what we mean by powder is mostly 98% supercoarse. And I've measured it myself, and I agree with those measurements that are published now by Leroy et al.
Well,
that's news.
What would it have taken, to implant these devices? How many devices would have been required for your thermite-thermate hypothesis to be correct?
Well, I do have an estimate. It's published in my paper. It's in Journal of Memoir Studies. It's also in the book.
What is it?
It would take around, as I remember correctly, that's why we publish these things, is about 1,000 pounds.
Well, see, that's you get back to your 10 trips. I mean, I thought I was being quite faithful to what you had told me before, and I kept thinking about it and thinking, well, Steve must have meant a larger number, so sometimes I've said 10 been 40 trips or 40 been 10 trips, because I think...
Why did you say that? It's in my paper. If you're quoting me...
All right, let me guess that now, because we're going to run out of time. But, I mean, Andy, the reason for that clip is the fact that Fetzer can also be a bully as well, right?
Oh, he's a bully, and he was turning down the audio, as you heard.
Yeah, that's right. So what was happening there is that he was potting down Jones so he could speak over him instead of letting the guy have his say and then respond, right?
Yes, and he was basically steamrolling him, and that's it's not very nice.
Well, let me say this also, because I got this from somebody who's a very intelligent guy. He has worked with the Kennedy assassination, and he has this to say. Jim Fetzer is a perfect example of a conspiracy gadfly. I have known of him for years because of his work on the JFK assassination. The problem is you really cannot tell if he is serious, ridiculous, or mischievous. I tend not to like him because he purports to have all the answers. He is bombastic and doesn't have the time for other people's opinions. He is either arrogant or deceptive. I think in the end, a person has to accept the fact that the forces working against any kind of rational resolution are so ubiquitous that you just have to enjoy the small victories and not get lost in the miasma charlatans. All right, listen, we are running out of time. In fact, we got to get going. But again, Andy, you got last response, and then you, Bill. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's just it's obvious that this is like an onion. You keep peeling the layers, and you keep coming down to more filth and corruption. It's amazing. Mixing my metaphors, but they need to be mixed in this instance.
All right, Bill.
Yeah, when we look at talk radio in the so-called Patriot community, I'm actually seeing a mere reflection of the mainstream media. I have not seen hardly anything from these people that sets them apart from the media that they claim to hate.
Agreed, and I think what's happening... Okay, Bill, I'm sorry.
Yes, I said.
Okay, the point is, folks, you're becoming the sheeple on the other side of the street, that you the same kind of sheeple that you're making fun of, who you accuse of drooling in front of their TV sets while they watch CNN and Fox and the rest. In other words, it's happening here, folks, and it's about the money. Guys, both of you, thank you very much for being with us, and we'll see you both in the near future.
Thanks, Biz.